Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to week 3 of your SAT Math Prep course. This week's topic is going to be two-way data tables. Now remember, ladies and gentlemen, you are not supposed to be starting the examples on the back of the worksheet until we have gone through the examples on the front. Please make sure that you're paying attention, as there are some very detailed things here that we have to watch for, and if you're not paying attention, you may miss that. The other thing that I need to mention here is that I do need everyone to be 100% certain that they have written their first and last name on the name line, and that they have circled their teacher's name and their course name. Okay, if you don't do that, it makes it difficult for me to get the paper back to your teacher. So make sure that you've given me your full name, first and last name. All right, so when we talk about a two-way data table, we're talking about a data table that lists data in two different ways. In this case, our first example here shows a survey of 240 people who own either an SUV or a sports car, and they've reported both their gender and which type of car they own. So you'll notice that the columns and rows, the rows indicate whether they are male or female, and the columns indicate whether they own an SUV or a sports car. And if you look, the totals are listed at the end of each row and at the bottom of each column, which means when we're looking at this, what we're seeing here is that there are 60 total males, that there are 180 total females, and there are a total of 240 total people in this survey. Now, in addition, we have 156 total that own an SUV and 84 total that own a sports car. Okay, so that's what these numbers represent. Okay, now we're going to be asked probability questions about these on the SAT, so we have to make sure that we're paying very close attention, because it will ask you a question that says, what is the probability that a female selected at random owns a sports car? So the second we see the word a female, that tells us that total females is our denominator, which means that we should be focusing only on the female row. Okay, so we're going to go in to our table, and we are going to locate the female data, this data here in the female row only. Because the probability that a female selected at random owns a sports car would be the number of females who own a sports car over the total number of females. So we already pointed out the total number of females. The total number of females is 180. And the total number of females who own a sports car, well, that would be the 45. So the probability that we would select a female at random that would own a sports car would be 45 out of 180. Now, as with any fraction, we need to reduce that. Both of those numbers are divisible by 45, so we would be expected to reduce that fraction down to 1/4. It would also be acceptable to give it as a decimal or as a percentage, but you should be trying to give your answer as a fraction, as that is the most common format that these show up in on the SAT. Let's do another one. Probability that a person selected at random owns an SUV. Well, as soon as we see the words a person, that means that total people is our denominator. So we should be focusing on the total row. Okay, so we're going to go in, and instead of using the row that I highlighted in yellow, we're going to use these numbers on the total row, 156, 84, and 240. Now, when we're asked for the total, or the probability that a person selected at random owns an SUV, that would be the total SUV owners divided by the total people. So total SUV owners, there are 156 SUV owners, and there are a total of 240 people. So we would reduce that 156 over 240. Those are both divisible by 12. So we would divide the top and the bottom by 12, and your calculator can do this for you if you use the fraction button to input this fraction, 156 over 240. And you should get 13 over 20 as your reduced fractional answer. You could also give the decimal equivalent or the percentage. But keep in mind that these questions are going to be multiple choice, which means you need to understand that the fraction, the decimal, and the percentage are all the same answer. Okay, moving on to our second example. It's the one on the left here, and I'm going to have to shrink it down and make it fit here. I'll give me just a little bit of time there. There we go. Nope, still not small enough. There we go. Okay, so we're doing the example on the left. It says the table above shows the kinds of foods that are fed to cats and dogs currently boarded at a pet care facility. What fraction of the dogs are fed only dry food? So, again, when we see of the dogs, that tells us to focus on the dog row. Because we only care about the numbers of the dogs, because it's asking what fraction of the dogs are fed. So, what fraction of the dogs, so our total dogs will go on the bottom, are fed only dry food. So dogs fed only dry food would go on the top. So there are 2 dogs being fed only dry food out of a total of 25 dogs. This fraction does not reduce, so it is our answer. Now these can get kind of wordy, ladies and gentlemen, so we need to make sure that we read the entire question and that we're very careful as we do these problems. So here on our last example, it says the table shows the results of a research study that investigated the therapeutic value of vitamin C in preventing colds. A random sample of 300 adults received either a vitamin C pill or a sugar pill each day during a 2-week period. The adults reported whether they contracted a cold during that time period. What proportion, there's a different way of saying what is the probability, of adults who received a sugar pill reported contracting a cold? So it says of adults who received a sugar pill. That means we should be focusing on the sugar pill row. Okay, so we're going to go in here and we are only going to look at the adults who received a sugar pill. We do not care about the other 2 rows of this table. So when we do this, we're going to do the total sugar pill on the bottom. And on the top, we're going to put reported contracting a cold. So sugar pill who also reported a cold. So the number of people who reported a cold with the sugar pill is 33. That's your top number. And your total for the sugar pills is 150. These numbers are both divisible by 3, so we would need to divide those answers by 3, which would give us our final answer of 11 out of 50, or B. Okay, folks, it's your turn. There are 3 examples on the back of this sheet. Again, you are to complete those 3 examples in the remaining time here during plug time, and then turn your paper into the proctor before you leave the room. Remember to show all of your work. Remember to circle your answers. Thank you very much for your time and attention.